What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. Thank you very much for joining me once again. And if you are new round to these parts, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. So it's the end of the transfer window. A few outgoings, not much on the incoming side of things. So without further ado, let's get into the headlines. Coming up on today's episode of Inside Man United. United set to unleash exciting teenager who Erik ten Hag prefers over Facundo Pellistri. Square pegs in round holes. Mason Mount has new competition for the Manchester United role he was signed to play. Sir Jim Ratcliffe plots an incredible €150 million triple Serie swoop to revitalise Man United's spine. And Fabrizio Romano has his say on Amad Diallo going back to Sunderland. All that coming up. Hello, once again, and thank you very much for joining me. We're going to kick things off with the Express today, who have an interesting article on Facundo Pellistri's exit and why it may have actually been sanctioned in the end by Erik ten Hag. So he is willing to kind of get rid of Pellistri in order to kind of help promote a more promising player. We saw this with the likes of James Garner and Zidane Iqbal, who were let go last season, much to the chagrin of many United fans. And people were wondering, what the hell are we doing selling these guys? These were players we were really excited about. And then, of course, Mainoo has done what Mainoo does this season and is now, you know, the new shiny toy, shall we say, in United's ranks. And so, sorry here, I'm just trying to get my microphone settled. So it seems that we might have another case of that with Pellistri not really being fancied by Ten Hag, but it's actually in favor of another player. So yeah, as we all know, and if you saw yesterday's episode or keeping an eye on any of the papers, Pellistri has now gone to Granada. €1.5 million loan fee between now and the end of the season, with an option to buy. Although it's not guaranteed, it's an option to buy, not a promise to buy. Given Granada's very precarious position within La Liga, if they get relegated, of course, they're not going to be blowing £9 million on Facundo Pellistri. However, if they do stay up, it's very likely that will go ahead. So Pellistri reportedly set to join Granada, which he has, in a short-term deal. And it looks like the player in question is Omari Forson, the 19-year-old academy product who is an attacking midfielder. Not exactly a winger, but he is a creative midfielder. And he looks to be taking the spot of Pellistri now in the senior team and will be potentially getting more minutes this season and certainly next season. So Ten Hag had named the 19-year-old in a few matchday squads, introduced him from the bench in Sunday's 4-2 win over Newport County, and Pellistri and Diallo were unused substitutes. Maybe that was because Diallo was potentially moving somewhere, a little bit of that later on, but we know, of course, Pellistri had his move on the way, so any injuries that may have been sustained during that match would have scuppered that deal, which would have been a disaster for all parties involved. So here's the player in question, Mr. Omari Forson. A lot of big noise about this kid. So if we just go on to our transfer market, you can see here in Premier League 2 already this season, in 4 appearances, he's got 3 goals and 1 assist. So he's absolutely smashing it up in Premier League 2. And if we just go back into last season as well, he's continuing on a fairly rich vein of form as well. From last season, if we go into the tournament there, 22 appearances, 8 goals and 2 assists, so 1 in every 2. A very, very handsome return. Now you can see here he can play on the left, he can play on the right. He's played there 14 times, so he can play on that right hand side. He can replace Pellistri, but he has been kind of deemed a more attacking midfielder generally. But maybe there will be room for him out wide as well as with Diallo. Now Diallo is more of a right side specialist, with Eriksen maybe going, and maybe some competition being required for Bruno Fernandes. You might see Amad Diallo coming in and grabbing a few games next season to give Bruno a rest if we don't find anyone else in those positions. But of course, there is the question of Mason Mount as well. So a bit of a funny one. But if we go back into this season, and look at some of the statistics. He's really kind of coming into his own now. You can see he's been playing on the left a little bit more often, central midfield once, right twice. But in the UEFA Youth League, 2 games, 2 goals, 1 assist. EFL Trophy, 2 games, 2 goals. This kid can score. He's got an eye for goal, and clearly Ten Hag fancies him over Pellistri. And he did get it right with now. Jimmy Garner's a different player, potentially, maybe not to Kobbie Mainoo. Zidane Iqbal was certainly more creative. Jimmy Garner and Kobbie Mainoo are probably similar in that they're box to box. Can do a bit of tackling, can do a bit of creation. It's more linking the midfield between defense and attack. That's what he does. That's what Garner does. But yeah, it looks like Omari Forson is the player now that is going to be coming in to the team. So, I mean, it really speaks volumes when we're going to have the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, maybe Omari Forson. There's other players pushing in there. Kim Walla in the centre half positions. Joe Hugel, who's just gone out on loan as well in the striking department. So there's a lot of production coming. And I mean, with the likes of, Ted Menji doing well at Luton, Elanga doing well at Forest, Jimmy Garner playing so well at Nottingham Forest, obviously Pellistri going over to Granada, Greenwood now at Getafe. Who else was there? Alvaro Fernandez, who is now plying his trade at Benfica, having left there from Getafe. Or was it Granada? May have been Granada. I always get those two mixed up. But the production system is there, and these are players that are going to Premiership sides, established Premiership sides as starting players. So United's scouting department have clearly been doing reasonably well over the last couple of years. So for all the faults that there are at the club, we've certainly done all right in recruiting good young players, trying to give them a chance at the first team. And, they are leaving to start for Premier League teams now, and that's always a good sign. So yeah, Omari Forson is the next man on the Aki to try and take his chance at United, and very best of luck to him. There's the young man there. So let's see what happens for the rest of this season and into next season. Mason Mount obviously has been struggling for fitness so far this season, and he will be coming back into the squad. But really, it's a case of where does he fit? With all these young lads coming through, putting competition on the more senior players, where is it that Mason Mount is supposed to fit into this team? Now, that was a question people were asking when the transfer was being rumoured before he ever joined. And it seems to be a transfer that Ineos themselves are kind of scratching their heads at. I reported in yesterday's news that Ineos have really wanted to take away all control over transfers from Erik ten Hag because they simply have not been impressed or even understanding of the moves that he has made. And Mason Mount is one of them. So it goes on to say that when he's trying to get his team together for the first time since I was manager, we can pick a team from the squad that is probably the strongest. He said just after beating Newport County in the FA Cup. And yeah, it's good to see Martinez back. Rashford might come back for Wolves. Obviously, I hope he doesn't. He needs a bit of a kick up the arse. But Mount has been back in training, and we're kind of looking at where is he actually going to fit in? Do you want to stifle the development of Garnacho? Is he going to provide a bit more competition, perhaps, for Marcus Rashford? Ten Hag did envision a midfield of Casemiro, Mount, and Bruno Fernandes, which we saw at the beginning of the season, and it was an unmitigated disaster. It basically left Casemiro isolated. These kind of 2 banks of 5 that he was looking to play got completely overrun, and we had no midfield, a giant gaping hole in the middle of the pitch where the opponents can essentially completely dominate the game. And we were chasing shadows. So there can be no getting away from the fact that Mount's start to life at Old Trafford has been underwhelming. Yes, it has. Now, that could be a mix of bad tactics and management on Ten Hag. There's also been injury worries as well. But he arrived early enough to enjoy nearly a full preseason, and he wasn't really all that impressive during that preseason either. But in typical Ten Hag fashion, he did like him from his time of seeing him play at Vitesse Arnhem when he was on loan there from Chelsea in 2017 and 2018. His vision is to play the offensive role, but he also wants to be multifunctional. He wants to be complete. Fine, whatever he wants is one thing, but whatever he is completely another. When you're playing in midfield, you have to attack, but you also have to defend. I'm sure he will bring dynamism into our game, and that was one of our analysis conclusions we made after last season. We need to be more dynamic in the midfield department. Again, I hate these kind of wanky management terms. You know that wanky business talk that people bring into the conversation, to kind of these fancy business words that don't really mean anything, and everyone kind of nods their head pretending that it makes sense. Oh yeah, totally. Like, to be more dynamic in the midfield. What does dynamic mean? Like in this, like it needs to transition quicker. Okay, well then say transition. Need to play multiple roles. Say that. It's a nothing statement. And again, it's a transfer that I think a lot of United fans have been frustrated with. Personally, I would have Rashford taking a seat on the sidelines given his absolutely appalling performances and attitude this season. It's time to get his ass on the bench and maybe give Mason Mount an opportunity to prove himself before the summer is out. For me, my mind is already made up on Marcus Rashford. It's now time to give Mason Mount a chance. And if he doesn't perform when he's fit or he continues to pick up these niggly injuries, it's time to get rid of Mason Mount in the summer as well. You might be able to get 100 to 120 million for both Rashford and Mount combined. Maybe more, you'd think more, but knowing United, they'll probably get 18 million quid in a packet of cheesies. But anyway, it goes on to say here that, he will be available for selection again. But what is he really going to do? Where is he going to play? Is it going to be on the left? Is he going to stifle Garnacho and Rashford? Is it going to be on the right? Is it going to stifle Omari Forson or Anthony Amad Diallo now that he's back in the mix? Is he going to give Bruno Fernandes a rest? A guy who refuses to take any sort of a break and run around everywhere like a headless chicken. The Mason Mount question is one that still needs answering. And I think a lot of United fans and pundits in general are really kind of looking for answers on this to see what the hell is going to happen Mason Mount with this team and with his career in general. So yeah, time will tell. Team Talk and James Marshman goes on to put together a story here about a triple swoop. Now, whether they're just taking 1 and 1 and 1 and getting 4 with this, just because they've been linked to all 3 doesn't mean they're going to go for all 3, but that's what this is going on to say. So if we go on, we see here we have Bremer, Gleason Bremer, and we have Joshua Zirkzee here flanking Mr. Ratcliffe in the middle. So United planning a triple raid for top Serie A stars worth a combined £128 million. Not bad for 3 players, but again, I'm always very wary of Serie A as a proving ground for players. Of course, great players come from every league, but just because you do well in Serie A or Portugal or Germany or anywhere else is no guarantee of success in the Premier League. So Liverpool targeting a top Bundesliga forward, Real Madrid looking for Jude Bellingham. Good for them. Let's go into our United chat here. So Italian football's best talents. United are going after a defender in the shape of Gleason Bremer at Juventus. Now, he's 26 years of age, so at that stage, I mean, it's not like the days of old where some of the best defenders plied their trade in Italy, like Nesta, Maldini, Chiellini. If you're a very top quality player, you're not in Serie A. It's that simple. Osimhen's 23, and it's known that he's going to be leaving Serie A. If you're a top player, you don't go to Serie A. You start in Serie A or you finish in Serie A. You don't have your best years there. Not anymore. It's just the reality of Italian football. I never thought it imaginable all those years ago when I was watching these Italian teams coming out into the Champions League music. But Serie A is it's a dying league, unfortunately, I hate to say. And it looks like there could be some good young talent for us to get. So as far as defenders go, the Red Devils are looking at Jean-Claire Todibo and Ronald Araujo of Barcelona. There could be a move for Araujo if Greenwood ends up going to Barcelona. They sure as shit don't have any cash, so we might be able to get a player swap there. With Ronald Araujo, it is kind of quite well known United are an admirer of him, and he is a good player. And it could be the kind of transfer that gets a player like that into United. But it looks like those deals seemingly difficult to pull off. Why? I don't quite know. Todibo's not going to stay in France. He's definitely going to get a move. Plus, Ratcliffe owns the goddamn club. And Barca are keen on Greenwood. They're broke and they've got a player we like. So I don't see what makes that so difficult. But we'll see. A new name has entered the thinking. Gleason Bremer, 26-year-old Brazilian, regarded as one of Serie A's best defenders in a 26, is about to come into his prime. Juventus have put a 70 million euro price tag on his head to try and either deter people from getting him or to maximize any sort of transfer value. But he's after winning 5 duels per game, 5.1 ball recoveries per 90, and he could be worth the investment. So let's see. We are also looking at a new striker in the shape of Joshua Zirkzee. But before that, Atalanta midfielder Ederson. I put a post up earlier today, yesterday on Twitter, confirming that United do have an interest in Ederson. Defensive midfielder, but can chip in with the goals as well. So rated in the 40 million euro bracket, Atalanta are determined to hang on to him. Newcastle are in the hunt as well, but seems to be a very strong player. Very defensive-minded, but can chip in with a goal as well. Kind of like Casemiro, I suppose. You kind of have to be an all-action midfielder these days. The regista, as they call it. My mate Keane will like that. I remember that he was talking about registas. Registas are basically like those deep-lying playmakers, like, Modric, Carrick. They can put in a tackle. They are the most kind of low-lying midfielder, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily defensive. They're called registas. So he could be one of them. So yeah, let's see how that goes. Joshua Zirkzee seems to be doing fairly well at Bologna, and United clearly struggling for goals up top. He's also rated at the 40 million euro mark as well. And yeah, he's been kind of banging them in. I think he's got a 1 and 2 goals to games ratio in Serie A, and very highly thought of. There he is there on the right-hand side. So yeah, could United get all three? One of them, two of them? Only time will tell, but it's going to be a very interesting summer on the United side. So yeah, Fabrizio Romano next on Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo liking a post, the fact that he didn't get a game against Newport County. A Sunderland fan put up a post saying, Amad Diallo, why don't you come back to Sunderland where you'll be appreciated and get some game time? He liked the post. No big deal. I mean, he liked a post that was, a piece of admiration from afar from a fan of Sunderland who absolutely love him. So why not give it a like? But I think he had to take the like down, just, the way things are these days. So Fabrizio Romano has his say on it as well, confirming that there was rumors that he'd been unhappy with the lack of potential game time under Erik ten Hag, and I had put in a request to go on loan to Sunderland. This has since been squashed. You can see Fabrizio Romano's post here. Amad Diallo has not asked Man United to leave the club. Told stories on his imminent exit on loan are not true. He's happy to stay. United want him to be part of the squad, and Ten Hag has been clear with Amad on his role for the present and the future. With Pellistri gone, there is absolute opportunity there. Anthony's not playing well. Pellistri is gone. Greenwood is gone. Sancho was gone. I mean, if not now, when? So it looks like the time is right for Amad to come in and finally show why United spent what they spent those years ago. And it's enough of him going out on loan now. Either sell him or use him. But this idea of going continually out on loan for the next kind of year when you've already been out on loan for the last 2 or 3 it's tiresome, it's nonsensical, and it just means you probably bought the wrong player and you're trying to fix it. It's kind of embarrassing when you're just still going out on loan 3 years later after such a big price tag. So the article goes on to say Amad himself has done nothing to dampen the rumors, liking a social media post saying he would come back to the Stadium of Light. But renowned transfer guru Fabrizio Romano has said this morning that Amad is expected to be going nowhere. It's likely that Amad Diallo will stay at the club this January and have more of a first-team role. He has to. Ten Hag wanting him to stay, and it's the same for the club. So it is likely that he will be staying. He's training well, determined to succeed, and despite constant rumors over a loan exit, he's expected to stay and be part of the rotations at Manchester United. The right wing role, that's not easy to say, has proven to be a poison chalice this season, with Greenwood shipped out, Sancho gone, and Anthony being embroiled in his own scandals and poor form as well. Garnacho has shown promise when switching over there as well, and Rashford can play there as well, but it does seem to be a little bit of a cursed side of the pitch for United for quite a while. Everyone that's getting their chance there has just been embroiled in absolute turmoil, one after another. It is actually like there is a voodoo curse on that part of the pitch. But Pellistri, while not being embroiled in any sort of behavioral or form-based scandals, he just didn't seem to be able to take his chance for one reason or another, so he's gone too. So it's wide open there for Mr. Amad Diallo to come in and see what he can do. So bye-bye to this man here on the right-hand side with Pellistri. Amad Diallo looking very fierce and determined and focused there to hopefully take his chance between now and the end of the season. So very exciting times ahead for United with some of the young players that are coming through. It's quite likely we're going to see displays with Højlund, Garnacho, Omari Forson, Amad Diallo, Kimwala at centre-half, who came on a few weeks ago. There's a lot of excitement to be had about the young players that are coming through at United and being given their chance. So I'm certainly excited to see that. That is going to be what's going to hold my interest between now and the end of the season. We're pretty much out of every tournament. We've got the FA Cup still to play for. Top four is a bit of a pipe dream unless there is a remarkable turnaround, one which I don't see unless miracles happen between now and the end of the season and we don't get any more injuries. But the lack of recruitment in January, how skint we are up top in terms of striking options. If Højlund and Rashford get injured, we are in real trouble up top. But that seems to be a risk Ineos are willing to take. It's very much a case of before we start buying the new clothes for the wardrobe, we got to shed the pounds. So it looks like they're kind of trimming fat, getting rid of the excess weight before they go back out there and start buying new outfits to try on. So yeah, it's a trimming exercise between now and the end of the season. And I think it's going to be a very, very busy summer indeed for United. So they are the headlines for today. So that is it for our news today. What are your thoughts? Please put your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you think about Amad Diallo coming in, Pellistri leaving, our triple swoop on Serie A. Should we be looking, at other leagues for our players? Because we haven't had the best of luck recently. So Serie A is a very dodgy place to be getting players because so often they come over and it just doesn't work out. It's a very, very different league. We've seen it with Sofia and Amrabat. We saw it with Darmian. And yeah, we've seen players go from our club over to Italy and doing very well. Ashley Young, Darmian when he went back, Mkhitaryan, Tammy Abraham when he went to Roma from Chelsea. It's just an easier league, so I'm always very wary about performances there and how they might translate when it comes back to Serie A. And Omari Forson, watch this space, an exciting young kid, clearly coming in and being favoured by Ten Hag to take up the youth spot that Pellistri wasn't able to fulfill. And I think there's a lot to be excited about, but poor old Mason Mount, what is going to happen, that guy? Hopefully he gets a run out against Wolves. I think people are dying to see him on the pitch and just trying to see what this club had intended for him and why he was brought on. Listen, his dad's a boyhood fan of the club. I'd say Mason probably was a fan of United as well if his father was anything to go by. He's clearly excited by the move. I didn't understand it at the time, but he wears red now, so I'm going to support him as far as I can. So let's give him time. I hope he gets some minutes off Rashford. Maybe takes over from Bruno on occasion and plays through the middle. That's where he likes to play at Chelsea. So let's see what happens there as well. So as always, thank you very, very much for joining me. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the notifications, and I will see you on the next one.